Arthur Westbrook wasn't exactly what you'd call a conventional time traveler. In fact, if you handed him a DeLorean, he'd probably try to fix it with duct tape and a roll of WD-40, convinced that solving time travel was just a matter of good old-fashioned tinkering. But here he was, sitting in what the higher-ups had grandiosely termed the temporal transit pod, though to Arthur, it looked suspiciously like an overcomplicated microwave with more buttons than a space shuttle. "All right, time machine, don't fail me now," Arthur muttered, glancing around the cramped pod. He had been recruited by a shadowy organization known only as the Continuum after they stumbled upon his accidental discovery of temporal displacement while attempting to fix his toaster. Now, they wanted him to prevent a catastrophic war in the year 2093. Arthur wasn't thrilled about being thrust into such high-stakes scenarios, especially when his track record was more unintentional chaos than savior of humanity. He adjusted the settings on the control panel, squinting at the blinking lights and indecipherable symbols. "Let's see. 2093, here we come," he declared, hitting the large red button labeled Go. The pod shuddered to life, a cacophony of beeping sounds filling the small space. Arthur gripped the sides, trying to steady himself as the world around him began to blur and distort. When the sensation finally ceased, Arthur stepped out of the pod, expecting to see a desolate, war-torn future. Instead, he found himself amidst a bustling crowd celebrating the grand opening of Futureland, a futuristic theme park touted as the pinnacle of human achievement. Holographic fireworks lit up the sky, and children laughed as they rode gravity-defying roller coasters. "Well, that's not war," Arthur sighed, scratching his head. He fumbled with his mission directive, a holographic screen that was supposed to guide him to the critical event that would prevent the impending conflict. Instead of providing any useful information, the screen displayed a cheerful message: "Enjoy the festivities. Your mission will commence shortly." Arthur tried to rationalize. Maybe he needed to immerse himself in this future to find the root cause of the war. But before he could ponder further, the pod's auto-navigation system kicked in, whisking him away with a blinding flash. Moments later, he found himself standing in the middle of a cobblestone street, surrounded by people in 18th-century attire. 1776, huh? "Great," Arthur muttered, adjusting his makeshift colonial outfit that the Continuum had provided. He glanced around, spotting a sign that read, "Philadelphia, the birthplace of a nation." The scent of roasting chestnuts filled the air, and the sound of quill pens scratching on parchment was unmistakable. Arthur approached a group of men in powdered wigs, who were engrossed in heated debate. Mustering his courage, he stepped forward. "Excuse me, gentlemen," he began, trying to sound authoritative. "I need to speak with the signers of the Declaration of Independence." One of the men, a robust fellow with a stern expression, turned to him. "Declaration, you say? What business have you with such important documents, sir?" Arthur blinked. "Oh, I'm from the future. We need to make sure everything goes smoothly so that, you know, the country prospers." The man raised an eyebrow. "From the future, you say? Well, we could use all the help we can get. Care to lend a hand with the signing?" Arthur gulped. "Actually, I was hoping to ensure the signing happens without any complications." The man chuckled. "Complications? Sir, if there were any, we'd see to them. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have important matters to attend to." As Arthur watched the man walk away, he realized that his mission directive must have been corrupted by the pod's malfunctioning system. He had intended to prevent a future war, but instead, he was now involved in the very events that would shape the nation. Frustrated, he tapped the pod's console, hoping to recalibrate his destination. Instead of stabilizing his location, the pod's holographic screen flashed wildly before displaying a new message: "Destination updated, Ancient Egypt, year 1324 BC. Welcome." Arthur pinched the bridge of his nose. "This is not happening," he groaned. He stepped back into the pod, pressing the return button desperately. The world blurred again, and moments later, he found himself standing in the shadow of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Sand swirled around his feet, and the air was thick with the scent of incense. Ancient Egypt, Arthur mused, surveying his new surroundings. He spotted a group of workers carving hieroglyphs into stone tablets. Determined to make the most of this unexpected detour, he approached them. "Hello. I'm here to help with the pyramid construction." The workers looked at him suspiciously. "You speak of gods and afterlife," one of them asked, pointing at Arthur's modern attire. "We must honor them properly." Arthur laughed awkwardly. "Oh, right. Gods and afterlife. You know, the usual pyramid stuff." Before he could think of a way to explain his predicament, the pod activated again, whisking him away to yet another time. This time, Arthur found himself in the roaring 1920s, amidst a bustling jazz club in New York City. The vibrant music and colorful atmosphere were a stark contrast to the austere pyramids. Jazz age, huh? Maybe I can blend in here, Arthur thought, trying to shake off the frustration. He ordered a drink and sat down, hoping to gather his thoughts. As he sipped his cocktail, he overheard conversations about prohibition, flappers, and the stock market. He considered making a small change, like encouraging better economic policies, but hesitated, remembering the unpredictable consequences of his previous interventions. Just as he was about to relax, the pod activated once more, pulling him away before he could make any meaningful impact. Arthur couldn't help but feel that he was stuck in some bizarre cosmic joke, being flung through time with no clear purpose. Exasperated, he leaned against the pod's wall. "Okay, think, Arthur. What's the pattern here? You're supposed to prevent a war in 2093, but all you're getting are distractions." His mind raced, trying to connect the dots. Perhaps the continuum had a larger plan, and these seemingly random jumps were part of the process. But Arthur couldn't shake the feeling that he was merely a pawn in a game he didn't understand. Determined to find a solution, he decided to keep a journal of his travels, noting each time period and any significant events. Maybe by analyzing these, he could identify a pattern or a clue to his mission. As he scribbled down his latest misadventures, the pod buzzed once more, signaling another leap through time. This time, Arthur landed in a quiet suburban neighborhood, the kind with neatly trimmed lawns and picket fences. It was 1999, and everything seemed eerily normal. He wandered the streets, observing the simplicity of pre-digital life. Children played hopscotch, neighbors chatted over fences, and the distant hum of a lawnmower filled the air. Maybe here's a chance to make a small, inconspicuous change, Arthur mused. He considered preventing a minor car accident he had read about in his mission directive, thinking it might have a ripple effect that could avert the larger conflict he was sent to stop. Approaching the intersection where the accident was set to occur, Arthur observed a young driver, nervously gripping the steering wheel. As the car approached the light, Arthur stepped forward. "Hey, you need to slow down," he called out. The driver looked surprised, glancing at Arthur. "Who are you?" Arthur hesitated. "Just a concerned citizen. It's not safe to speed here." The driver chuckled. "Thanks for the tip, but I think I've got it under control." Disappointed, Arthur watched as the car sped through the intersection, the light still green. The accident unfolded just as he had read. Suddenly, a collision that would lead to a chain of events altering the future. He sighed, feeling the weight of his perceived failure. As he turned to leave, the pod activated once again, dragging him to another time. Each jump became more disorienting, and the small changes he made seemed to only complicate things further. Arthur began to question whether his efforts were making any difference at all or if he was simply adding more layers of complexity to the already tangled web of time. In one instance, he tried to prevent a minor political scandal, only to have it escalate into an absurd series of events that resulted in the election of a candidate who introduced bizarre laws, stabilizing the region in unexpected ways. In another, he attempted to stop the assassination of a civil rights leader, inadvertently turning the martyrdom into a more potent symbol that ignited a stronger, more peaceful movement than he had envisioned. With each failed attempt, Arthur's frustration grew. He was starting to realize that his ability to change history was limited, and perhaps even futile. The Continuum's mission seemed more like a Sisyphean task, with each effort to push the boulder of fate only rolling it back into place. One day, after yet another unsuccessful intervention, Arthur found himself in the early 1900s, amidst the industrial boom. The factories were booming, the streets teemed with people seeking opportunity, and the air was thick with the promise of progress. He had hoped that by influencing economic policies, he could create a more stable foundation for the future. However, his meddling led to the establishment of a peculiar trade union that, while initially seeming beneficial, introduced regulations that stifled innovation in unexpected ways. Factories became overly regulated, slowing down production and technological advancements. The economic landscape became a patchwork of stagnation and minor booms, none of which pointed towards the war he was meant to prevent. Sitting in a small cafe, Arthur stared out the window, sipping his lukewarm coffee. "What's the point anymore?" he muttered to himself. The endless cycles of intervention and unintended consequences were wearing him down. He felt like he was trapped in a temporal labyrinth, each passage leading him further away from his original mission. As the days turned into weeks, Arthur's sense of purpose dwindled. He began to see himself not as a hero trying to save humanity, but as a prisoner of time, bound to a never-ending cycle of attempts and failures. The more he tried to change the future, the more entrenched he became in the very fabric of history he sought to alter. One evening, exhausted and disheartened, Arthur found himself back in the temporal transit pod. He had reached a breaking point. "Maybe it's time to accept that I can't change anything," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the pod's hum. He closed his eyes, hoping that this time, the pod would let him rest. Instead of a leap through time, the pod fell silent. The lights dimmed, and the hum ceased, leaving Arthur in an eerie stillness. He tried to open the door, but it wouldn't budge. Panic set in as he pounded on the door, shouting for help, but his voice echoed back at him, unheard. Realizing he was stuck, Arthur sank to the floor, the weight of his failed missions pressing down on him. "I'm just a prisoner," he thought bitterly. A prisoner of time itself. As days blended into nights, Arthur grappled with his predicament. The temporal transit pod, once a symbol of hope and adventure, had become his cell. He couldn't leave the timeline, nor could he truly alter anything meaningful. Each attempt to make a difference only reinforced his entrapment, binding him tighter to the endless march of history. In the solitude of his temporal prison, Arthur began to reflect on the nature of free will and destiny. Was he truly powerless, or was his existence part of a grander design he couldn't comprehend? The more he pondered, the more he felt the lines between his actions and fate blur into indistinguishable patterns. One night, amidst his introspection, the pod flickered to life. Arthur hesitated, fearing another uncontrollable jump, but something compelled him to stay. The light stabilized, and the holographic mission directive reappeared, clearer than ever. History is self-correcting. Your role is integral to its continuity. Embrace your place within the timeline. Arthur stared at the message, a mix of resignation and understanding washing over him. He realized that every action he took, every intervention, was not a rebellion against fate but a thread woven into the tapestry of time itself. His struggles, his frustrations, were as much a part of history as the events he sought to influence. With this revelation, Arthur felt a sense of peace. He wasn't fighting against an unstoppable force, he was an essential component of it. Accepting his role didn't mean giving up, it meant understanding that his efforts, however flawed, were part of the inevitable progression of time. As the pod's lights dimmed once more, Arthur leaned back, no longer resisting the flow of time. He embraced his role as the prisoner of time, finding solace in the knowledge that he was both a participant and a witness to the grand narrative of history. And in that acceptance, he discovered a newfound sense of freedom, one that came not from changing the course of events, but from being a part of their unalterable essence. Arthur closed his eyes, letting the rhythms of time envelop him. He was no longer a frustrated wanderer, but a guardian of the temporal flow, ensuring that the story of humanity continued unabated. And in that role, he found his purpose, not in altering history, but in understanding and preserving its intricate dance. Arthur Westbrook felt a strange sense of calm settle over him as he embraced his role within the timeline. The relentless chaos of his previous jumps seemed to fade, replaced by a profound understanding of his place in the grand tapestry of history. Yet, even in this newfound acceptance, the paradox of his existence lingered like a shadow, whispering questions he couldn't quite silence. As the pod stabilized, Arthur became aware of a subtle shift in his surroundings. The air felt different, brighter, almost electric. He glanced around, expecting to remain within the confines of the temporal transit pod, but instead found himself standing in a vast, open field under a sky painted with hues of twilight. The landscape was serene, dotted with wildflowers that swayed gently in the breeze, and the distant silhouette of a city skyline hinted at human presence without the chaos he had come to associate with it. Where am I now? Arthur pondered aloud, taking in the tranquility. There was no immediate threat, no pressing mission directive flashing before his eyes. It was as if time itself had decided to offer him a moment of respite, a brief interlude in his otherwise tumultuous journey. As he walked through the field, Arthur noticed a figure approaching from the horizon. It was a woman, her presence both commanding and comforting. She moved with purpose, her strides confident yet graceful, as if she were accustomed to navigating both the physical and temporal landscapes. Arthur Westbrook, she called out, her voice clear and resonant. I've been expecting you. Arthur stopped in his tracks, taken aback by her direct address. How do you know my name? And who are you? The woman smiled, a mixture of warmth and authority in her expression. My name is Dr. Evelyn Hartley. I'm a temporal historian, tasked with ensuring the integrity of pivotal moments in history. The Continuum has been monitoring your progress, and it seems you've reached a critical point in your journey. Arthur scratched the back of his neck, feeling a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Critical point? What do you mean? Dr. Hartley gestured to the surrounding landscape. You've been traveling through time, making attempts to alter events in an effort to prevent a future war. However, each intervention has created unforeseen consequences, leading you to this very realization, that your actions are intertwined with the fabric of history, making you a prisoner of time itself. Arthur nodded slowly, the truth of her words resonating deeply. I've tried so hard to make a difference, to save humanity from itself, but it feels like no matter what I do, nothing changes, or worse, things get worse. Dr. Hartley approached him, her eyes filled with empathy. Your struggles are not unique, Arthur. Many who attempt to influence time find themselves caught in its intricate web. The key is not to fight against the flow but to understand your role within it. Arthur sighed, the weight of his experiences pressing down on him. But if I can't change anything, what's the point of all this? Why was I given the ability to time travel in the first place? Dr. Hartley placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. Time travel was never meant to be a tool for altering history at will. It's a bridge for understanding, for witnessing the events that shape our existence. Your journey has taught you something profound, that history is self-correcting, and that every action, no matter how small, contributes to the larger narrative. Arthur looked out over the field, contemplating her words. So, what am I supposed to do now? Just accept that I'm stuck here, witnessing events unfold without being able to influence them? Dr. Hartley shook her head gently. Not exactly. Acceptance doesn't mean inaction. It means embracing your role as both observer and participant. You have a unique perspective, Arthur, one that can offer insights without directly altering events. Perhaps your true mission is to understand the delicate balance of history and to find ways to support it without disrupting its natural course. Arthur pondered this, feeling a flicker of hope amidst his lingering frustration. But how? How can I contribute without making changes that ripple through time? Dr. Hartley smiled knowingly. By sharing your knowledge, by preserving the stories and lessons of the past, present, and future. Your experiences can provide valuable insights that help guide humanity towards a more harmonious path. It's not about preventing a war through direct intervention, but about fostering understanding and resilience through awareness. As she spoke, Arthur felt a shift within himself. The constant struggle against the inexorable march of time began to ease, replaced by a sense of purpose that transcended his previous mission. He realized that his journey wasn't about changing history, but about comprehending its intricate dance and finding his place within it. "Maybe you're right," he admitted, a hint of determination returning to his voice. "Perhaps my role is to learn and to share, rather than to fight against the inevitable." Dr. Hartley nodded approvingly. "Exactly. Embrace your role, Arthur. Use your experiences to contribute in ways that honor the integrity of time. By understanding the past and observing the present, you can help shape a future that aligns with the natural flow of events." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a warm glow over the field, Arthur felt a sense of peace wash over him. The endless cycles of intervention and unintended consequences began to fade, replaced by a deeper understanding of his place within the temporal continuum. He was no longer a frustrated wanderer, but a guardian of history, entrusted with the responsibility of preserving its delicate balance. Days turned into weeks as Arthur and Dr. Hartley worked together, exploring various moments in time and documenting their findings. Arthur's journal became a repository of invaluable insights, blending his personal experiences with historical knowledge. He learned to navigate the complexities of different eras, observing without interfering, and finding fulfillment in the simple act of understanding. One evening, as they sat under a starlit sky in a peaceful meadow, Arthur reflected on his journey. "You know, Evelyn, I used to think that being a time traveler meant having the power to change the course of history. But now I see that true influence comes from within, from understanding and preserving rather than altering." Dr. Hartley smiled, her eyes twinkling with agreement. "Time has a way of teaching us lessons we might not learn otherwise. Your journey has been unconventional, but it's led you to a profound realization about the nature of existence and the role we play within it." Arthur nodded, feeling a sense of contentment he hadn't experienced since his initial leap through time. "I suppose being a prisoner of time isn't such a bad thing after all. It's given me the chance to see the bigger picture, to appreciate the intricacies of history without the burden of trying to control it." As the night grew deeper, they continued their conversation, delving into the philosophical implications of time travel and the delicate balance of free will and fate. Arthur found solace in these discussions, their shared understanding forging a bond that transcended the boundaries of time itself. One day, while reviewing his journal, Arthur stumbled upon a series of interconnected events that seemed to form a pattern he hadn't noticed before. It was a subtle sequence, but one that hinted at a greater purpose behind his journey. Intrigued, he brought it to Dr. Hartley's attention. "Look at this," he said, pointing to the series of dates and events. "There's a recurring theme here, something that ties all these moments together. It's like a hidden narrative guiding us." Dr. Hartley examined the entries, her brow furrowing in concentration. "You're right. There's a synchronicity here that suggests a deeper connection. Perhaps your experiences are part of a larger design, a narrative that unfolds in its own time." Arthur felt a thrill of excitement. "Do you think that means there's a reason I was brought here? That my journey serves a specific purpose within the grand scheme of things?" "It's highly likely," Dr. Hartley affirmed. "Everything in time has a cause and effect, a reason for being. Your presence and your experiences are integral to maintaining the balance and continuity of events. By understanding these connections, you can better appreciate your role and the impact you have, even if it's not immediately apparent." Inspired by this revelation, Arthur delved deeper into his journal, mapping out the intricate web of events and their interdependencies. He began to see patterns that spoke to the resilience and adaptability of humanity, moments where small acts of kindness or courage had profound ripple effects on the future. One such instance stood out, a seemingly insignificant encounter between two strangers that led to a pivotal friendship, which in turn influenced key decisions that shaped the course of a nation. Arthur realized that his own journey mirrored these moments of hidden significance, each step contributing to a larger narrative he was only beginning to comprehend. As weeks turned into months, Arthur's understanding of time deepened. He began to recognize the subtle threads that connected past, present, and future, each one weaving into the next in a harmonious dance. His role as a temporal historian evolved into that of a guardian, ensuring that the delicate balance of events remained intact. One afternoon, as Arthur and Dr. Hartley revisited a significant moment in history, a peaceful protest that had the potential to escalate into widespread conflict, Arthur felt a familiar sense of unease. Memories of his previous attempts to alter events resurfaced, reminding him of the futility he had once felt. Evelyn, he began hesitantly, do you ever feel like despite our efforts, some things are meant to unfold a certain way? Like there are limits to what we can influence, no matter how much we understand? Dr. Hartley looked thoughtful, nodding slowly. Absolutely. While we can observe and document, there are certain forces at play that guide the course of history. Our role isn't to control but to support, to ensure that events unfold in a way that preserves the integrity of the timeline. Sometimes, that means letting go and accepting that some outcomes are inevitable. Arthur sighed, the weight of his lingering doubts pressing down on him. I still struggle with the idea that I can't make a more significant difference, that my actions are limited to mere observations. Dr. Hartley reached out, placing a comforting hand on his arm. It's natural to feel that way, especially after everything you've been through. But remember, understanding and preserving history is a form of influence in itself. By ensuring that key moments remain intact, you're contributing to the stability and continuity of the timeline. It may not always be visible, but your efforts matter. Arthur nodded, feeling a renewed sense of purpose. You're right. It's not about grand gestures or sweeping changes, but about the subtle ways in which we uphold the balance of time. Their conversation was interrupted by the soft hum of the temporal transit pod activating nearby. Arthur glanced towards it, the familiar sense of movement stirring within him. But this time, there was no abrupt thrust into chaos. Instead, the pod emitted a gentle light, signaling a new phase in his journey. Dr. Hartley stood, a knowing smile on her face. It seems your journey isn't over yet. There are still moments that require your attention, your unique perspective. Embrace them, Arthur, and continue to fulfill your role within the timeline. As the pod approached, Arthur felt a sense of readiness wash over him. He had come to understand that his journey wasn't about control or change, but about connection and preservation. With a deep breath, he stepped into the pod, trusting in the balance he had come to cherish. The familiar sensation of time distorting enveloped him once more, but instead of fear or frustration, Arthur felt a sense of peace. He was part of something greater, a guardian of history with a purpose that transcended his initial mission. As the pod transported him to his next destination, he carried with him the lessons he had learned and the understanding that he was truly a prisoner of time, yet, paradoxically, a free and essential part of its eternal flow. In his next leap, Arthur found himself in a bustling marketplace in the heart of Renaissance Florence. The air was filled with the sounds of merchants haggling, artists showcasing their works, and the vibrant energy of a city on the brink of cultural rebirth. The sights and sounds were a far cry from the chaos of his earlier missions, yet Arthur sensed the underlying significance of this moment in history. He navigated the crowded streets, his keen eye observing the interactions and exchanges that defined this pivotal era. As he wandered, he encountered a young artist struggling to sell his paintings. The man's passion was evident, but his frustration was palpable as potential buyers dismissed his work. Arthur approached him, recognizing the struggles of an artist trying to find his place in a competitive world. "Excuse me, I couldn't help but notice your work. It's truly remarkable." The artist looked up, surprise and gratitude evident in his eyes. "Thank you, sir. It's been a challenging day, to say the least." Arthur smiled warmly. Sometimes, the right words can make all the difference. Don't give up. Your talent has the power to inspire and change the world. The artist's face brightened, his spirits lifted by the unexpected encouragement. "I appreciate your kindness. It's easy to lose hope in a sea of indifference." Arthur nodded, feeling a sense of fulfillment in this simple act of support. "Believe in yourself and your vision. The world needs your art." As he continued through the marketplace, Arthur reflected on the impact of his words. It wasn't a grand gesture or a monumental change, but a small act of kindness that could inspire the artist to persevere and contribute to the flourishing of Renaissance art. In this moment, Arthur understood the true essence of his role, fostering the conditions for greatness to emerge, without imposing his will upon history. Days passed as Arthur immersed himself in the vibrant culture of Renaissance Florence. He observed the interactions between artists, patrons, and thinkers, documenting the intricate web of influences that propelled this era of creativity and innovation. His presence went unnoticed, allowing him to witness firsthand the pivotal moments that shaped the course of art and science. One afternoon, Arthur found himself in the studio of a renowned sculptor, observing the meticulous craftsmanship that brought marble to life. The artist was struggling with a particular piece, his frustration evident as he grappled with the intricacies of the sculpture. Arthur approached, offering a friendly smile. "Mind if I take a look? Sometimes a fresh perspective can help." The sculptor looked up, intrigued by the unexpected offer. "Of course. I could use a second opinion." Together, they examined the sculpture, discussing techniques and offering insights that bridged traditional methods with innovative ideas. Arthur found himself immersed in the creative process, contributing without overshadowing the artist's vision. It was a delicate balance, one that mirrored his own journey through time, supporting without interfering, understanding without controlling. As the sculpture took shape, Arthur felt a sense of accomplishment. He wasn't changing the course of history, but he was facilitating the conditions that allowed greatness to flourish. It was a subtle influence, yet one that resonated deeply within him. One evening, as Arthur strolled along the Arno River, he encountered a familiar figure, Dr. Evelyn Hartley. She stood beneath the golden glow of the setting sun, her presence as reassuring as ever. "Evelyn," he greeted, approaching her with a warm smile. "I didn't expect to see you here." She returned his smile, her eyes reflecting the wisdom and understanding they had developed together. "Time has a way of bringing us to the right places at the right moments. How has your journey been?" Arthur chuckled softly. "It's been enlightening, to say the least. I'm beginning to see the subtle ways in which we can support and preserve history without imposing our will upon it." Dr. Hartley nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. "That's a crucial realization, Arthur. By understanding and respecting the natural flow of events, we can contribute in meaningful ways that honor the integrity of time." They walked together along the riverbank, discussing the delicate balance of influence and observation. Arthur shared his experiences in Florence, the small acts of support that had fostered creativity and resilience. Evelyn listened attentively, her insights adding depth to his understanding. As the night deepened, they found themselves at a quiet cafe, the soft glow of lanterns illuminating their faces. Over cups of rich Italian espresso, they delved into the philosophical implications of their roles as temporal guardians. "Do you ever wonder," Arthur mused, "if our actions, no matter how small, truly make a difference? If every word of encouragement, every shared insight, contributes to the greater narrative in ways we can't fully comprehend?" Dr. Hartley considered his question thoughtfully. "I do. It's both comforting and humbling. While we may not see the immediate impact of our actions, they ripple through time, influencing events in ways that are often subtle and indirect. It's like planting seeds and trusting that they will grow into something meaningful." Arthur nodded, feeling a sense of peace with this analogy. "It's about trust then, trusting in the natural progression of events and in our ability to support them without overstepping." "Exactly," Evelyn agreed. "By embracing this trust, we can fulfill our roles without the burden of trying to control outcomes. It's a harmonious balance between influence and restraint." Their conversation was interrupted by the soft chime of the temporal transit pod, signaling another time jump. Arthur glanced at it, the familiar mix of anticipation and acceptance stirring within him. "It seems my journey isn't over yet," he remarked, a hint of gratitude in his voice. Dr. Hartley stood, her presence steady and reassuring. "Remember what you've learned, Arthur. Embrace your role, and continue to support the flow of time with understanding and respect." With a final nod, Arthur stepped into the pod, feeling the gentle pull of temporal displacement. The world around him blurred once more, and he was transported to his next destination, carrying with him the lessons of Florence and the wisdom of his mentor. He arrived in a bustling cityscape, the sounds of modern life filling his senses. Skyscrapers towered overhead, and the streets were alive with the energy of countless lives intersecting in a complex web of existence. This was the year 2093, the very point he had originally been sent to prevent a war, but as Arthur surveyed the city, he saw no signs of impending conflict. Instead, he observed a society that had learned to navigate its challenges with resilience and cooperation. The world was far from perfect, but the tensions that could have led to war had been diffused through understanding and mutual respect. Confused, Arthur activated his mission directive, expecting to find discrepancies or signs of the war he had been tasked to prevent. Instead, the holographic screen displayed a message: "Mission accomplished. History maintained." Arthur blinked, a mixture of relief and bewilderment washing over him. "What? How?" Dr. Hartley's voice echoed in his mind, a comforting presence amidst the uncertainty. "Your journey was never about preventing a specific event, but about fostering the conditions that allow humanity to thrive. By understanding your role and contributing in meaningful ways, you've helped guide the course of history towards a more harmonious path." Arthur took a moment to absorb her words, looking around at the thriving metropolis that stood as a testament to the resilience and adaptability of humanity. The war he had feared never materialized, replaced by a society that had learned to navigate its complexities with wisdom and compassion. As he wandered through the city, Arthur encountered familiar faces, people who had been influenced by his previous actions, their lives subtly shaped by his presence. Each interaction was a reminder of the interconnectedness of events and the delicate balance of influence and observation. He found himself in a park, the sounds of children playing and the laughter of families creating a serene atmosphere. Sitting on a bench, he reflected on his journey, the confusion, the frustration, the moments of clarity and understanding. He realized that his role had evolved from a desperate attempt to change the future to a harmonious participation in the natural flow of time. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over the city, Arthur felt a profound sense of accomplishment. He had come to understand that true influence wasn't about control, but about support and preservation. His journey had transformed him from a frustrated wanderer into a guardian of time, entrusted with the responsibility of maintaining the delicate balance of history. With a contented smile, Arthur activated the temporal transit pod one final time. He had fulfilled his mission, not through grand interventions, but through subtle acts of support and understanding. As the pod enveloped him in its gentle pull, he felt a sense of fulfillment that transcended his initial goals. The pod returned him to the tranquil field where his journey had taken a pivotal turn. Dr. Hartley stood beside him, her presence a comforting reminder of the wisdom he had gained. "You did well, Arthur," she said softly. "You've learned the true essence of your role, and history is stronger for it." Arthur nodded, feeling a sense of peace he had never known before. "Thank you, Evelyn, for your guidance and understanding." Dr. Hartley smiled warmly. "It was never just about the mission, Arthur. It was about the journey and what you discovered along the way. You're no longer a prisoner of time, but a true guardian of its flow." As they stood together under the starlit sky, Arthur realized that his journey had come full circle. He had embraced his role within the timeline, finding freedom not in control, but in understanding and preservation. The paradox of being a prisoner of time had transformed into a harmonious coexistence, where his presence and actions contributed to the ever-evolving narrative of humanity. With a final glance at the night sky, Arthur felt the gentle pull of the temporal transit pod once more. This time, however, there was no sense of confinement or frustration. Instead, there was a feeling of completion, a sense that his journey had achieved its true purpose. As the pod enveloped him, Arthur took a deep breath, embracing the flow of time with open arms. He was no longer bound by the constraints of his past struggles, but elevated by the wisdom and understanding he had gained. His role as a guardian of time was not a prison, but a profound responsibility and privilege, a testament to the resilience and potential of humanity. And so, Arthur Westbrook embarked on his next journey, not as a desperate savior, but as a harmonious participant in the eternal dance of time. His story, woven into the fabric of history, continued to unfold, a testament to the delicate balance of free will and fate, and the enduring spirit of those who strive to understand their place within it. The end.